Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're unpacking a really fundamental concept. It underpins pretty much every economic headline you read. National income. It's far more than just some giant number. It's kind of like the detailed report card of a nation's economic health. Shows its heartbeat, even its overall well-being, really.
It does.
We've got a carefully put together stack of sources here, articles, notes, all aimed at giving you a shortcut to, well, really understanding this vital idea.
And what's truly insightful, I think, is that while national income sounds straightforward enough, actually measuring a country's total economic output, that's incredibly complex.
Right.
It's a foundational piece of macroeconomics, crucial if you want to grasp the big picture of how an economy actually works.
Absolutely. So let's maybe pull back the curtain on this. What exactly is national income, and why is it such an indispensable tool for economists, for policymakers, for everyone, really?
Okay. Well, at its core, national income tries to capture the total value of all economic activity within a country over a specific time period.
Okay.
Think of it like a huge snapshot of everything a nation produces, distributes, exchanges, consumes. Historically, in India, for example, the organized effort to measure this really kicked off with the National Income Committee, the NIC, back in 1949. And that paved the way for the Central Statistical Organization, the CSO, which now compiles the annual estimates.
So it's about putting a number on economic well-being, usually in money terms, right? But in real terms, we're talking about the actual flow of goods and services produced in a year.
Exactly.
Our sources have some interesting ways of defining it. The NIC itself was very practical, defining it as the volume of commodities and services turned out during a given period, counted without duplication. Simple enough, maybe?
But it gets more nuanced.
Yeah.
When you look at other economists.
Definitely. Take Professor A.C. Pigou. He talked about the national dividend, which he saw as the objective income of the community, including income from abroad, all measurable in money.
Okay, slightly different angle. Then you have Professor Irving Fisher, who had a more consumer-focused view. He argued that the national dividend or income consists solely of services as received by ultimate consumers. So focused on the endpoint, the consumption.
Wow, okay. Those aren't just tiny differences, are they?
Yeah.
They really change what we're trying to capture. It makes you wonder how we settle on one number.
It does.
Those different perspectives really highlight the nuances of what this big number is trying to represent.
Precisely. And speaking of nuances, it's absolutely crucial to remember that national income is fundamentally a macroeconomic concept.
Right. Big picture.
We're talking about the whole economy, not just, what you or I earn as individuals.
And one of the biggest rules, our sources really stress this, is only including the value of final goods and services.
Yes.
This is where that challenge of double counting comes in, isn't it?
Absolutely critical.
If you're estimating, say, shirt production, you don't count the cotton separately because its value is already baked into the shirt's final price. It's all about avoiding that trap, counting the same thing over and over as it moves through production.
Exactly right. And it's also a net aggregate value, which means it accounts for the wear and tear on capital assets, depreciation.
So what the machines and buildings lose in value over time.
Precisely. We're looking at what's left after the stuff that produced the goods has, taken its hit.
Okay. And it includes net income from abroad. What's that?
That's basically the difference between what our country earns from its exports and, say, investments overseas versus what we pay out for imports and what foreign investors earn here.
So it gives the full global picture of our earnings.
It does, adds that international dimension. It's also always tied to a specific financial year, like in India, that's April 1st to March 31st.
Got it.
And importantly, it's seen as a flow concept. It shows economic activity over a period of time, not just a static picture at one point.
So it's all about that measurable flow of money, essentially.
Essentially, yes. Though the real value is the goods and services underneath. And that flow isn't just a metaphor. It's actually a fundamental concept in macroeconomics called the circular flow of income.
Okay. The circular flow.
Yeah, it illustrates the continuous movement of money and goods all through the economy.
So let's try and picture this economic dance. We often start simple with a two-sector model, right? Just households and businesses.
The basic version.
Okay, so
Yeah.
households provide the essential things firms need: land, labor, capital, that entrepreneurial spirit.
The factors of production.
Right. Firms then use these factors to produce all the goods and services that we, the households, want or need.
Correct.
Now the money part. Firms make payments, rent, wages, interest, profits back to the households for using those factors.
Factor payments.
And then households take that income and spend it. Consumption expenditure, buying the goods and services from the firms, which keeps the whole cycle going.
Exactly. And what's really insightful here is how this loop makes the economy feel like a living system. Production creates income.
Which gets spent.
Which creates demand. Which fuels more production. It's continuous, driven by, well, never-ending human wants.
So a slowdown somewhere, like if households suddenly save way more.
Right. It doesn't just cut consumption. It can ripple back. Less demand means less production, maybe less investment, and ultimately less income for everyone. It just shows how interconnected it all is.
And this basic model gets more complex, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You add the government, that's the three-sector model.
Yep. With taxes and government spending.
And then the foreign sector exports for the four-sector model. You get those formulas like YC plus I plus G or YC plus I plus G plus XM.
Correct. Adding layers, but that core idea of the circular flow, that continuous loop, it stays the same.
Okay. So with those basic characteristics in mind, the next huge question for economists is, how do you actually measure this thing? Because it's not just one national income number, is it? We hear GDP, GNP, all these acronyms.
Exactly. And that's where we get into concepts like gross domestic product, GDP, net domestic product, NDP, gross national product, GNP, and net national product, NNP.
Different ways of looking at it.
Different lenses, precisely. Let's break them down quickly.
Okay.
GDP, that's the big one we hear most often. Gross domestic product. It's the total market value of all final goods and services produced within the geographical borders of a country in a year.
Within the borders. Got it.
It's basically all the spending added up. Consumption, C, investment I, government spending, G, and net exports, exports minus imports, or XM. So GDP plus I plus G plus XM, NDP, net domestic product. This just takes GDP and subtracts depreciation. Remember the wear and tear.
Right, so it's the net value produced domestically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
NDP equals GDP depreciation.
Simple enough.
GNP, gross national product. This broadens the scope. It includes income earned by a country's residents no matter where in the world they earned it.
Ah, so not just location, but who earns it.
Right, so it's GDP plus the net income earned from abroad. That's receipts from abroad, R minus payments made abroad, P. So GNP plus I plus G plus XM plus R.
Okay, it's tracking income based on residency.
And finally, NNP. Net national product. Just like NDP was net of GDP, NNP is GNP minus depreciation. It's the net value generated by a nation's residents globally. NNP equals GNP depreciation.
That makes sense. Gross versus net, domestic versus national, location versus residency.
Okay.
But then our sources bring up something else. Something called Green GNP. That sounds different.
It is. Green GNP is a really crucial conceptual leap, I think. It aims to be an indicator of sustainable use of the natural environment and also equitable distribution of development's benefits.
Sustainable use. Okay.
Because what's really insightful, or maybe worrying, is that traditional measures like GNP, they don't factor in the costs.
Mostly.
Environmental pollution, depletion of natural resources caused by all that production. So just seeing GNP go up doesn't necessarily mean quality of life is better if, the rivers are poisoned or the forests are gone.
So what does this really mean for how we think about a country's success? It sort of challenges that whole more is always better idea, doesn't it?
Fundamentally.
It pushes us to ask, are we sacrificing the future or the planet's health just for short-term gains? It sounds like it's trying to redefine what a truly healthy economy looks like.
Absolutely. Promoting sustainable development, avoiding environmental damage, aiming for fair distribution. It's about long-term economic welfare, not just immediate output.
How do they even calculate that?
Well, the formula looks straightforward on paper. Green GNP equals GNP, net fall in stock of natural capital plus pollution load.
Straightforward formula, maybe not so straightforward calculation.
Exactly. How do you actually put a robust number on the net fall in natural capital or the pollution load? It's incredibly complex. It's still a major frontier for economists. It forces us to ask tough questions. What's the real value of clean air or a stable climate?
Right. Huge questions. Okay, so we have these different concepts, GDP, GNP, NNP, Green GNP. Given all these different lenses, how do economists actually go about measuring something so vast? What are the methods?
There are three main ways they try to estimate national income. The output method, the income method, and the expenditure method.
Okay, let's start with the output method, also called the product method or inventory method.
That's right. This one looks at national income from the side of production. What does the country actually make? Typically, they break the economy into sectors, agriculture, manufacturing, services, mining, etc., and add up the output from each.
And the biggest headache here, you mentioned it before, is avoiding double counting.
The absolute biggest challenge. Imagine counting the wheat, then the flour made from the wheat, then the bread made from the flour.
Probably massively overstating the value.
Totally. So economists use two main ways to stop that. First, the final goods approach. Simple idea. Only count the value of the finished product. That loaf of bread, its price already includes the wheat and the flour. Just count the bread. Second, the value-added approach. This one sums up the value added at each separate stage of production.
How does that work?
Let's use that shirt example from our sources. Say the raw cotton is valued at $150. It gets processed into yarn worth $250. The value added at that stage is $100. $250 minus $150.
Okay.
Then the yarn becomes cloth worth $400. Value added $150. $400 minus $250.
Right.
Finally, the cloth becomes a shirt worth $500. Value added there is $100. $500 minus $400. Now add up all those value-added steps. 150 plus 100 plus 150 plus 100.
That equals 500.
Exactly, which is the value of the final shirt. It's a clever way to track the value created at each step without counting anything twice.
Very neat. So it's about being really meticulous. And there are other things to watch out for too, right? Like practical stuff.
Oh, definitely. You have to include the imputed value of goods people produce for their own use, like a farmer eating their own vegetables.
Yeah.
That's still production, even if no money changes hands.
Okay. What else?
You need to adjust for indirect taxes, things like sales tax, because they inflate the market price but aren't actually income generated. So you subtract those.
Right. And subsidies.
Add those back in because they lower the market price but represent value. Then there's accounting for price level changes over time, inflation, to measure real output changes.
And depreciation.
Deduct that. And ignore sales of secondhand goods. They were counted when first produced. It's a lot to track.
Seems like it. Where is this method used most?
Often favored in countries with big agricultural or manufacturing sectors. India, for instance, uses it heavily for those areas, but less so for services like transport or commerce.
Okay. Method 2. The income method, also called the factor cost method.
Yes. This shifts the focus to the distribution side. How is the income generated actually distributed? It adds up all the income received by a country's citizens in a year.
So all the rent, wages, interest, profits.
Exactly. All the payments for those factors of production we talked about. And it also includes something called mixed income.
Mixed income.
That refers to the income of self-employed people. Think shopkeepers, small farmers, freelancers who are essentially using their own land, labor capital, and enterprise. Their income isn't easily split into rent, wages, profit, etc.
Ah, okay. And what do you have to be careful not to count here?
A big one is transfer incomes. Things like pensions, scholarships, unemployment benefits, even gifts.
Why not? That's income for the person receiving it.
It is, but it's not income generated from current productive activity. It's just a transfer of money that was already counted as income elsewhere, including it would be double counting again.
Ah, I see. What else is excluded?
Unpaid services again, like housework. Hugely valuable, but no market transaction. Also income from selling secondhand goods or financial assets like shares and bonds. Those don't represent new production.
Right. But you do include some things that might seem odd, like undistributed profits.
Yes, companies' profits that aren't paid out as dividends still represent generated income. Also, income from government property and even the imputed rental value of houses people own and live in.
The rent I would pay myself if I rented my own house.
Sort of, yes. It represents the value of the housing service being consumed. This method is pretty popular in places like the US and UK, and India's CSO uses it for sectors like trade, transport, professional services, public administration.
Okay. One more method, the expenditure method, sometimes called the outlay method.
Right. This one totals up all the spending in the economy in a year. Spending on consumer goods, spending on capital goods, all of it.
So basically tracking where all the money goes, what are the components?
You tally up private final consumption expenditure, see. That's you and me, households, spending money. On non-durable stuff like food, durable goods like cars, and services like haircuts or doctor visits.
Okay, see.
Gross domestic private investment expenditure. This is business spending. Buying new machines, building factories, replacing old equipment, adding to inventories.
I for invest.
Government final consumption and investment expenditure. G, this is the government spending. On administrative services, police, defense, education, and also on big infrastructure projects like roads, dams, railways.
Good for government.
net foreign investment or net exports, XM. We saw this before. Exports minus imports. The net spending by foreigners on our goods and services.
X minus M net exports.
And sometimes separately listed, net receipts, RDP. The difference between foreigners spending on our domestic stuff and our residents spending abroad. Often bundled into the other categories, though.
Okay, and precautions here. Similar exclusions.
Very similar. Ignore spending on intermediate goods, only final goods count. Ignore secondhand goods. Ignore transfer payments. And buying financial assets like stocks that's just changing ownership, not spending on current output.
And taxes and subsidies.
Same adjustment. Deduct indirect taxes, add subsidies to get to the true factor cost value.
Now, our sources mentioned this method isn't used much on its own.
That's right. It faces a lot of practical data collection difficulties. It's hard to track all the spending accurately, which is why, as you said, India's CSO actually uses a combination blending the output and income methods mostly to get its final national income figures.
Okay, that makes sense. But it also raises a really important question. If measuring national income is so crucial, why are there all these hurdles? Why so many methods, all these fiddly precautions? What makes it just so complex?
It's a great question. And yeah, getting these numbers right isn't just tricky. It can feel like navigating a minefield. We face both theoretical or conceptual difficulties, problems with the ideas themselves, and practical or statistical difficulties, problems with actually gathering the data.
Okay, let's start with the theoretical ones. What makes it hard conceptually?
Well, a huge one we touched on is figuring out what should even count. How do you value services that aren't paid for, like the immense unquantified value of a stay-at-home parent's work? Or volunteering, acts of charity. They contribute hugely to well-being, but there's no market transaction.
No price tag.
Then there's the whole underground economy, illegal income from gambling, black markets, smuggling. It definitely fuels some economic activity, but for obvious reasons, it's never included in official figures.
Can't exactly ask smugglers to fill out a survey.
Not likely. Even production for self-consumption, that farmer eating their own crops, poses a conceptual challenge. We try to impute a value, but it doesn't actually enter the market, which is tricky for a measure based on monetary exchange.
And what about government services? You mentioned that before. How do you value defense or law and order?
Exactly. The valuation of government services is a perennial headache. There's no real market price, so often it's valued at the cost of providing it, which might not reflect its true value to society.
Tricky.
Anything else conceptual? The income of foreign firms can be complex, deciding which country's national income it belongs to. The standard practice now, guided by the IMF, is usually to include it where the production actually happens. And a massive one, changing price levels, inflation or deflation. If prices double, national income in money terms might double, even if we didn't produce a single extra thing. You need constant adjustments to see the real change, which is conceptually complex.
Okay, so those are the big ideas that are hard to pin down. What about the practical, on-the-ground difficulties? The statistical problems?
Plenty of those, too. The absolute biggest practical nightmare is still the problem of double counting. Just distinguishing final goods from intermediate goods in a complex economy, like, is this bag of flour for a bakery or for someone's home? It's a constant challenge.
Can imagine.
Then, especially in developing countries, you have the existence of a large, non-monetized sector. Think subsistence farming, barter systems in rural areas. A lot of economic activity happens outside the money economy, making it incredibly hard to capture accurately.
So it just gets missed.
Often, yes, or significantly underestimated. Linked to that is just inadequate and unreliable data. Getting correct, timely data across all sectors, especially on things like unearned incomes or precise consumption and investment figures, it's a constant battle, particularly where record-keeping isn't widespread.
And depreciation. You said that was tricky.
Hugely. There are no uniform, universally accepted standard rates for calculating the wear and tear on capital assets. Different accounting methods, different assumptions about asset life. They can give you quite different NDP or NNP figures.
So even the net figures have uncertainty.
They do. Also, capital gains or losses say your house price skyrockets or the stock market crashes. Those affect personal wealth, but they aren't included in national income because they don't result from current economic production.
Right, it's just asset values changing.
Exactly. Then you have practical issues like illiteracy and ignorance. Many small producers, farmers, shopkeepers just don't keep detailed accounts, making data collection really difficult through surveys.
And classifying workers.
That too. Difficulties in classifying the working population. Especially in places like India, people might have multiple jobs, farming part-time, doing labor other times. It's hard to neatly assign their income to one source.
Yeah, real life is messy.
It really is. And finally, even something seemingly simple like valuation of inventories, stocks of raw materials, partly finished goods, unsold final products needs careful assessment. Mistakes there can distort the final production value for the year.
Wow. Okay, so it's complex conceptually and practically. Given all that, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why should you care about these intricate calculations, these methods, these debates and difficulties? What's the real-world payoff?
That's the crucial question. Ultimately, national income data acts like the social accounts of an economy. It's the closest thing we have to a comprehensive ledger showing how all those aggregates, income, output, product, are built up from individual activities, industry performance, international trade. It gives us that big picture.
And it's not just academic, right? It shapes actual policy.
Absolutely. It forms the very basis for national policies. Governments use this data to design employment strategies, industrial policies, agricultural support. It helps track changes in output, investment, savings, vital inputs for economic forecasting and building economic models.
So essential for steering the ship.
Couldn't do it without it. It's also fundamental for economic planning. Whether it's a 5-year plan or just annual budgeting, you need that data on gross income, output, savings, investment, consumption to set realistic targets and allocate resources.
And for researchers.
It's a goldmine for economic research. Scholars rely heavily on national income accounts to analyze long-term trends, understand business cycles, test economic theories, compare historical periods.
Hey, let's compare ourselves, doesn't it?
Critically, yes. It allows for the comparison of standard of living, not perfectly given all the measurement issues, but it's the main tool we have to compare economic well-being between different countries and also track progress or setbacks within the same country over time.
And finally, what about fairness? Does it tell us anything about that?
It provides vital insights into the distribution of income. By looking at the breakdown of national income into wages, rent, interest, and profits, we can get a sense of how the economic pie is divided, highlight disparities, and inform policies aimed at maybe a more equitable distribution.
Okay. So we've taken a really comprehensive deep dive into national income today, from the basic definitions and features through the different concepts like GDP and GNP, the complex measurement methods, and all those significant challenges involved. It's definitely clear this isn't just some dry accounting exercise.
It's not at all.
It's really a window into the health, the structure, the very functioning of a nation's economy.
And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, understanding all these nuances, all these difficulties, it's key, which maybe raises an important final thought for you to consider. Given these intricate methods, these inherent challenges in measuring national income accurately, how should that affect the way we interpret those big headlines about a country's economic growth soaring or its economy shrinking? And how might understanding these complexities change our perspective when we try to compare the economic well-being, the standard of living across different nations around the globe? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep digging into the fascinating world around you.